Hey, it is the vlog ride, and we are on the way home. A brief stop this evening to go and donate plasma, because that's the thing I do sometimes. And I wanted to do an update. I don't think I have done yet. Pretty sure I haven't. Anyway, so I have decided for the first Harry Potter book, the lens that I'm going to use for analyzing it is going to be queer theory, which I don't feel is particularly unusual or controversial, given that there is a large LGBT following for Harry Potter. The first book itself is just very much a coming out narrative, like textbook of what constitutes, the kind of story that we would go, this is a metaphor for coming out. So I don't feel that I'm being innovative in that regard. I say that knowing that there are things, and I actually do want to talk about that a little bit, because I'm taking a specific focus with this analysis, and given some things that I learned when I was researching this particular focus for queer theory, as well as discussions that have come up since then, I kind of feel like it would be a good idea for me to talk about this ahead of doing that. So there you go. So queer theory itself can cover a pretty wide range of topics when we're talking about looking at media through that lens. In my own experience, just because it ends up being what comes up for me, I guess, most of the time when I see queer theory discussed, it is usually, not always, but usually for my experience, done in light of sexuality more than anything else. And this is good. Some very, very important readings come from this, and important discussions get brought up and added to with these readings. So I have no issue there. I myself want to focus in a different direction. Yes, I definitely see a coming out narrative, as I said, in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. But the coming out story that I want to look at, the parallel, the metaphor, if you will, is not with regards to coming out and sexuality, but coming out and gender. And I think more than anything, I will be focusing probably on transgender. That is not meant to discount or exclude or erase other gender identities. It's just when I was reading and when it kind of hit me that I saw some parallels to things my transgender friends and loved ones have said to me about their experiences, things that I have seen trans creators and trans activists talk about, that it struck me that the focus on this analysis was probably going to be from the point of view of transgender. Will I have discussions about other genders as well? I might. It depends on how the analysis actually goes, and just how much of the rest of the book matches along with what I'm seeing so far as far as analysis goes and parallels. But I'm still in the beginning of the books when Harry is just getting introduced to the Wizarding World, and there are some parallels that I saw there with regards to transgender people sometimes coming into LGBT communities. Just, again, some experiences that I've seen people share and talk about. So, yeah. Yeah, very, very much so. A thought occurred to me about the narrative for Harry Potter and the backstory for him, and just thinking about the LGBT community. So, why did I want to make this video ahead of continuing to read and analyze and prepare to do that? Well, so one of the first things I wanted to do upon doing this, I knew there would be queer theory readings of Harry Potter. Like I said, the first book especially is textbook coming out narrative. There is a large LGBT following for the books, and a lot of fan fiction gets written with an LGBT audience in mind. So, and by LGBT people. So, queer theory readings into the books is not, as I said, unusual. I don't feel that's radical or innovative or anything like that. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to see what kind of discussions were going on. If somebody else had looked at the first book specifically with the coming out narrative in terms of gender. And I didn't really find anything, at least not yet. I'll be doing more research as I go along. But I did come across some kerfluffle with regards to some tweets that, so I'm on Twitter and I'm getting more active on Twitter again, but you have to understand that, like, up until about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, most of my activity on Twitter was me not realizing that every time I save something to a playlist, that it automatically posted that to Twitter. I didn't realize that was going on, and it took me a couple of days to figure out how to turn that off because I found it really annoying. So I just had not been on Twitter much. But some of the people that I enjoy watching on YouTube are very active on Twitter. And so I started getting back into Twitter in order to follow them, and so on and so on. So I was not aware, and I'm not, like, I love the books and I love the movies. I do from time to time collect fandom merchandise, but I'm not the type of fan who goes and hunts down every single bit of news with regards to Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling and all of that fun stuff. I'm not that deep into the fandom the way that I would or have done that for other things that I was passionate about. So even though the whole thing with the tweets is a little bit old, it was new to me to discover that she had apparently liked and retweeted some transphobic tweets. And yeah, that makes the way I'm kind of analyzing this interesting. And I worry that it could be seen as problematic. And I respect that. The thing with interpretation is that how you interpret a work is not going to be dependent on an author's intention or really even anything an author says following that. I could put myself in a bubble where I don't do anything involving the extended universe outside of the books and just do a reading on that without, knowing that she's come out with things like Dumbledore being gay or certain metaphors for certain things in the books. And it would still be as valid of a reading as if I did take all of those things into account in analyzing the books. Because when you analyze fiction, especially, when you analyze media, but most especially when you analyze fiction, you are approaching it from your own frame of reference. And then, like what I'm going to be doing with this channel, whatever frame of reference is involved with the type of reading that you're doing. So nothing of Rowling's intention ever has to involve the book being, intending the book to be a coming out narrative. She does not have to think about, care about, or support transgender rights in order to see a gender narrative in the coming out narrative. My own experiences knowing people who are non-binary and knowing people who are transgender and them sharing stuff with me seeing stuff, me following other transgender creators, and because I care about people who are close to me, learning more about what it is to be transgender, what transgender people face, why acceptance and transgender rights are so important. All of that is going to give me a specific type of frame when I look at a work of fiction. So, and that frame is not affected by the author. That is mine. It belongs to me. One of the things that I don't want to do is I don't want to give the impression that the book makes her pro-trans rights, if she is not in fact, or continues to share things that are transphobic. My reading has nothing to do with what I feel she intended to put into the book as far as meaning. It is, again, meaning that I am pulling out based on the frame from which I am viewing it. Both the theoretical frame and my own personal experience and knowledge. So I don't want the impression to be what I'm reading is what I think she intended, because I don't. not from anything that I have seen from J.K. Rowling or discussed about her. I really don't even think that a coming out narrative was on her mind when she wrote the book. So, that relating to being transgender is just not even kind of on the radar of considerations that I think would have been on her mind. That said, can a reading like that still be good? Even if she herself maybe is not supportive of transgender rights and transgender acceptance, or maybe she kind of is, but is also your dad. Yes, I think that reading can still be valuable and can still be useful. One of the important things about a coming out narrative, especially, is that it can help to create empathy for people who otherwise don't have a frame of reference for feeling it. I am cisgender, so while as a writer, I have the capacity to imagine a lot, and I have learned to take one set of experiences and transpose them into other types of experiences in order to write about things that I do not personally know about, or have not personally experienced, or that don't even exist. That is different from having a real concrete understanding from experience. Being cisgender, I can't know innately what it's like to be transgender. I can only imagine, and I can only listen to what people say, what people share about their experiences, and go from there. And part of understanding is, reading a story that can be interpreted as a coming out narrative, seeing that discussion and going, oh, okay, I understand now. And I would like for this analysis to do that for what it is to be transgender. Because I think that empathy is needed, and for people who have it, it's wonderful that we do. We can always improve upon it, because again, our empathy only can go so deep as we understand, and not experience it. We can only understand so much, so we can always improve our empathy. And for those who don't have it, to gain it is important. And I think that can happen no matter what Rowling's own opinions about transgender issues are. Even if she were to say, no, it's not at all about transgender, and transgender has nothing to do with it, really wouldn't matter to the discussion. Because, again, I'm not looking at the books through the same frame that she is. I have different experiences, and I have different priorities. So it is going to affect how I read the book, and really, it affects how I read the book from the first time I read the book. So, that's saying something about how framing works. Because the first time I read the book, I wasn't thinking about a coming out narrative at all. I wasn't really even looking at it for any kind of meaning outside of just the book itself, and it being a story about a kid who discovers he's a wizard and what happens after that. I wasn't looking for any deeper meaning than that. I was just reading a book. So, your frame can change from reading to reading. That is very possible. So, So there you go. That is my thoughts about the approach I want to take to the book and what that approach maybe means in context of other things. At any rate, if you like this video, if you want to see more, please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. I try to, get a vlog up right now at least once or twice a week to get the channel going and moving. I won't have this done before the end of June. Obviously, we're almost out of Pride Month, but Pride Month doesn't have to be the only time that we talk about this stuff. So there you go. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, comment if you have any thoughts about any of this. Hit me up on Twitter if you want. And yeah, peace.